filed with the clerk at the Township of Bridgewater and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Please be aware of the planning board policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. Hearing assistance is available on request. Accommodations will be made for individuals with a disability, provided the Americans with this pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act or the ADA, provided the individual with the disability provides 48 hours advance notice to the planning department secretary before the public meeting. However, if the individual should require special equipment or services, such as a cart transcriber, 7 days advance notice, excluding weekends and holidays, may be necessary. I would ask that everyone please rise to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Probst, could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Vessio.
Here.
Councilman Hurst.
Here.
Here.
Magura.
Here.
Mr. Wang.
Here.
Here. Mr. Banga.
Here.
Ms. Charteris.
Here.
Mr. Chowdhury.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Probst. Okay, at this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to address our board on any matter that's not listed on this evening's agenda, please feel free to come forward at this time. Incorrect. There's no item on the agenda for Cornell Boulevard this evening. If you would like to make a brief public comment, you're welcome to, certainly, but this board does not have jurisdiction to debate that this evening. Good evening. If you can, just state your name and address and a brief public comment regarding that situation, please.
Yes, my name is Maureen Dwyer. I live at 275 West Summit in Somerville. I'm here to oppose the Cornell Boulevard redevelopment. I just had a couple questions.
I'm sorry, before you go there, we're not permitted to answer any questions. This
Okay.
is a subject of active litigation. If you
Okay.
have a comment that you want to make,
I guess I have a comment then.
as a courtesy, we will certainly allow limited comment, but we are not, it is active litigation.
Okay.
So there's no one on this dais that is able to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, I guess my comment is that I would hope that Bridgewater would come up with an area that would be more suitable if it's for affordable housing for homeless veterans, is what we read. There's so many studies out there. I would just hope that you all did your looked it up and figured it out, and I don't understand why this is the most suitable area. So if this is something that you're going to go down, I would hope that you would maybe just educate the residents of Somerville and tell us why you think this particular area is where you think that it would be a suitable housing, affordable housing, because any way we look at it, it's not. And then as far as, I guess you can't comment whether that it's already started. There was a bulldozer and everything over there, so I guess that's why we're all sort of up in arms, because I thought we would get the answers to our questions before it started, but okay. So my comment is just, I'm hoping that you would all go out, take a look at it. It's hard to believe that that's the most suitable place to put housing. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
How you doing? My name's Steve Moss. I'm a resident of 311 Altamont Place. I am also part of the lawsuit of the group of independent residents that are suing you currently, and we're opposing your AHA3 redevelopment amendment. I'm sure you're aware that you had till today to respond. Of course, your attorneys responded at maybe 3:45 today, and then we have this meeting today. So, you know, in all aspects of politics, there's always things that are going on. You could have responded a week ago, you didn't. You waited till the deadline today. So once again, dirty pool, a little bit dirty pool. You've tried 4 different times to get something approved there. You realize that the DOT will never let you enter the highway there because of the impact of the traffic. So you want to circumvent that because you split Cornell with us. So you want to try and influx your traffic from this 20-unit building into our neighborhood, which we don't have sidewalks, street lights. There's a problem with speeding now. My office did a study in suburban areas of cities as Somerville, which Bridgewater apparently doesn't have a city, and for every 2-family unit or home, it creates 9.8 vehicular traffic incidents a day, whether that's Uber, Amazon, the people who live there coming home. So times that by 20, that's 100, let's just say 150 cars a day, 5,000 cars a year you're going to influx into our neighborhood. That's the most prestigious section of Somerville because you're looking for an avenue out so you don't have to go on the 206 because you'll never get that. It's just wrong, okay? We have bald eagles. The neighbor has pictures of bald eagles that hunt Peters Brook. Of course, you know they're off the endangered list now, but they are a species that we have to protect. They live in Duke Farms, possibly looking for a new home in Peters Brook. You're going to strip all these trees out, just like your tree gate that went on up at Vossler. You know, do it first and beg for forgiveness. You can't blame the contractor for that. I've been a contractor for 40 years. You tell me I'm taking 67 trees down, I'm taking 67, maybe 65. I'm not taking 300. So you're looking to strip a piece of land that buffers the most expensive houses in Somerville, okay? Then you're going to influx, let's just say 2,500 cars a year, cut it in half into our streets. They're not going to Bridgewater, they're going down Altamont, down Prospect, flying. It's crazy, okay? You have to realize what you're doing. I don't understand why your mayor and our mayor don't get together and talk about a land swap. We, for some reason, own the soccer field right next to the state police barracks, and there's a giant piece of woods there, and behind that are townhomes that have the sewer capability right there. So maybe they butt heads, maybe you guys butt heads. Somebody's got to get together and say, this is unrealistic to do this to a beautiful neighborhood of a street that you're going to be coming in our street to turn into your development. I think you need our sewer too. I'm not sure. We'll leave that up to our attorneys, but it's just wrong. And we're making you aware that you're doing these things this evening to try and get your affordable housing redevelopment with that AH3 slipped in as this place wasn't on your master plan. And you're trying to get that done based on our attorney's letter to your attorney saying all the deficiencies in your master plan. So you're trying to circumvent that. So something needs to be done, guys, because as privately, we have unlimited funds, trust me. So Mayor Gallagher last night said that he can do nothing right now until there's a site plan submitted, at which point Somerville will come at you very aggressively. The guy was there doing percolation tests. I do them for the last 40 years. He's doing that to see the permeability of your stormwater management. So you obviously have someone under contract for the property right now. If he's there doing perk tests, trying to get a development approved and figure out where his stormwater management's going to be. He told this little lady here that he was just digging to check out where the sewer's going. So again, dirty pool, you know, but I knew better. So please reconsider what you're doing and maybe try and do a land swap, which would be better for everyone. Thank you.
Just want to state again for the record that this is public comment. We are incapable of responding. Well, but there was some pretty inflammatory commentary made.
Yeah, please state your name and address for the record, and please let's try to keep the commentary brief as
Richard
well.
Cash, 203 Cornell. I'm ground zero. So I'm not going to go on about everything. I just have a big concern that is eating at me, and I hope none of you are this type of person. You know where the property is, I think, for most of you probably don't know physically. You have the property, you have Time to Eat Diner, you have the entrance ramp to 202, 206, you have 202, 206 right here. The property, ramp, major highway. You're proposing to put 2 buildings in here, and then you're going to invite these families, who will probably have some little kids, to move into here and let those kids suck up this exhaust 24/7, 365. I have a big problem with that. I can smell the exhaust in my patio. I live right there. My house is ground zero. On days in the summer, when the wind is blowing a certain way, I cannot be on my patio. Maybe an hour, 2 hours, I can smell the exhaust. I'm 100 and I don't know how many feet from the highway. So now you're thinking of putting 2 residential buildings. Veterans, here, this is what we think of you. Breathe in the exhaust for 24 hours a day. Little kids, yeah, we think this about you kids. We don't have we disregard your lives. Breathe the exhaust in. We need to meet our quotas. Doesn't matter if we're going to jeopardize your health. We have to meet our quotas. The mayor has given this directive. Meet the quotas. Who cares about the kids? This is what I'm seeing. It really bothers me that my township is behaving like this with complete disregard for people's lives. So.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else? And for those of you that just walked in, I'll just remind what was just stated by our councilman. Any subject matter related to Cornell Boulevard this evening is not on our agenda, as secondarily, it is a current situation that is under litigation. This board is not, does not have the ability to discuss this matter this evening. So please feel free to comment on the situation with a brief comment. However, we're going to limit it to commentary at this moment.
The board has no jurisdiction over this matter.
Thank you, Board Attorney. Mr. Peck.
I did just, my name's Gaynor Newmeyer, and I live at 291 West Summit Street, just around the corner from the proposed, or from the rezoned area of the proposed building. And I would just want to register that I'm opposed to it, because one of the things that strikes me as a bit strange, that maybe people, you can tell the other people, the planners or whatever, is that Somerville has 4 or 5 times bigger population per square metre or square mile than Bridgewater does. But you want to try and squash that right on the side of our bit of land? Why would you do that? Why would they want to do that? Because it just seems unreasonable to me when you've got that much more space that you could put the premises on. And also, I don't think it would be very nice for anyone to live there either, especially if they've got any kind of handicap. And they're living right next to a roaring main road, right next to the circle, with all the alarms going off, with all the police cars from the accidents every day. And also, because of the traffic around there, it's already bad down Route 28 going onto the circle. You get held up every morning, it's just going to make it worse. So, and it's not very nice for the people, some of them who live are Bridgewater residents, whose properties are going to be affected by the noise, because if you take trees out of that as well, the flooding's going to be worse. It's going to ruin their properties, devalue their properties for what? Just to squeeze it onto that little bit of land when you've got all that extra land, bigger than Somerville. Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's all. So I just want to register mine and my husband's objection to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newmeyer.
So, I've been to most of these meetings, and
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
my name's Tim Cullen, and I'm at 285 West Summit Street, about a block away from where this project is proposed, or looks like it's being proposed. So I really just voiced my opinion that I really would like to be, I'm stating that I'm opposed to having this project and the spot zoning being done in this area. Living this close to the Somerville Circle, I've seen so many people crossing these roads, 202, 206, trying to get over to go shopping and stuff like that. And I cannot imagine what this is going to do on these on-ramps that daily we see Raritan, Bridgewater, and Somerville coming there to see accidents where cars have been hit, the amount of traffic that goes on in these areas, especially this road. And I find it hard to believe that this development is going to have it where all these people are going to be traversing back through Somerville, Cornell Boulevard, and not attempting to cross 202 and 206 right at this road area. I find it impossible to believe it's not going to happen. So I'm opposed to it. I'm asking the board if they have any opportunity to voice an opinion of changing this ordinance where it's for the spot zoning of this development. And really just want to have my name put down that I oppose it. And as a neighborhood, I can't believe that we're going forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address, write your address for the record.
It would be preferred, just so that we have both, you know, the verbiage as well as the written.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's for the completeness of the record, so.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Riley, 100 Prospect Street, Somerville, New Jersey. I'm also here to oppose the AH3 spot rezoning of Block 406, Lot 2.01. I'm sorry that there's more of us here than you anticipated tonight. We were told that we needed to be here to speak against the rezoning, so if you were surprised that we're all here, that's why. I won't add more. There's been a lot of great arguments as to why this is just a terrible location. I never heard of the land swap idea before. I don't do what you do. Maybe that intrigued you, maybe it didn't. But it's a much better piece of property over there than squeezing this build into such a small piece of property. A lot of arguments already made. The veterans in question, I thought I was a sound sleeper until I moved to 100 Prospect Street. I'm awake throughout the night. Hydraulic brakes, motorcycles, traffic noise. I don't suffer from post-traumatic stress disorders, but I know that some of our unfortunate veterans do. It just doesn't make sense as a location. So hopefully beyond you or amongst you, we can find a different location for this build. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
How you doing? Jim Cummings, 299 West Summer Street, Somerville. Obviously, I'm against what's going on. I have questions, I'd like to have answers, but I know that's not going to happen. I do have concerns, and I have thoughts maybe for the board. One is, was there a traffic study done to consider that? Two, if I was a builder and I bought that property, I would only be limited to maybe a house, maybe 2 houses, not 15 units. And you're putting 10 pounds of stuff in a 2-pound bag. And it's going to affect the neighborhood. It's going to, well, you have traffic going down all the time, too. And we see it going down Cornell because it's a cut-through. And you're going to add more. And it's just going to be tough. And, yeah, you think about the kids playing there. I wouldn't want my kid being walking the sidewalk on 202, 206 entrance. That's rough enough just getting across to Tim Hortons. You know, there's accidents there all the time, too, as well. But that's a whole thing. But just to consider. And also an EPA study. Has there been an EPA study with the brook? That, you know, anybody builds something like that, especially that larger building, they're going to do something like that. The EPA is going to want something like that. So that's my bottom line. You know, I don't think it was totally considered completely, and I think it really needs to be rethought. Maybe downsize it if you want to get your points in with the federal government. Put the veterans there, or put maybe 5 families there, fine, but be realistic about it. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dave Knapp, and I live on 295 Altamont Place in Somerville. As everybody else is here, I'm not thrilled with this project at all. I respectfully request that you rescind the spot zoning ordinance on Block 406, Lot 2.01, which we refer to as Cornell Boulevard, to AH3, as is not consistent with the single-family residences in the area. The infrastructure doesn't support it, the neighborhood doesn't support it, and it doesn't make any sense for your town or for ours. I respect Bridgewater immensely. I've been in this town, I've been in this neighborhood since 1978. I lived on this block. My sister lives on Cornell, directly across the street from where your exit's gonna come, into their front yard. Yesterday, when I was in front of the property, as the bulldozer was there, my sister's car is parked in front of the house, and your bulldozer's in front of, directly across. You can't get through there. Cars had to be pulled, moved, so somebody could get down the block, down Arlene Drive. Makes no sense to me. If any of you even looked at this block and looked straight out towards Mr. Cash's driveway, you're going to have to widen that street to have an exit. That cuts off his driveway. I don't know how he's going to get into his backyard. Or else you could have a horseshoe going like that up Cornell Boulevard. Which makes no sense. You may not care about Somerville, the neighborhood. You should care about the two residences of Bridgewater that have a big say in this. You need access to this lot, ingress, egress. From the plan I saw, or the one thing, all hearsay, but the initial plan seems to be going right between their driveways because you believe there's a paper street there, which is yours, but it's not. It's theirs. So I believe you probably have to go through the eminent domain process. You'll probably have to sue them. They'll sue you, whatever. You may not ever get that. So what do you think you're going to do? You're going to move everything down the block to come out on a little narrow strip of Cornell Boulevard in Somerville. A little cul-de-sac road. That's where you're putting egress and ingress in there. I mean, this is what your plan is for 20 units to come out on a little street in Somerville. It's beyond me how you could possibly think something like this works, number one. Number two, the points that were made as far as putting veterans and people who can't afford to live their American dream in a small little lot that's directly on 202, 206 is embarrassing to me. I would be embarrassed as a Bridgewater resident that you want to stick these people here. And if you walked that block and you looked over that street to see the trucks coming down 202, 206 all day long, I think you'd have a better opinion of what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just in case anyone is watching this video and seeks context, I will once again repeat that this is a subject both of ongoing litigation, which prevents us from commenting, as well as this planning board does not have jurisdiction over this project at this time.
Are there any other comments to be made by our members of the public? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close that public portion of commentary, and we're going to move on this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have a set of board minutes from March 18, 2025. However, it's been brought to my attention, I don't believe that everybody in the dais has had a chance to fully review this content. Is that correct, Ms. Probst?
Press to table table those, please.
Very good. So we'll be tabling those till the next meeting then.
We'll be prepared for the next meeting to do that?
Yes, they are on the dais, but they were not.
Okay, great.
So we have adequate time to review.
Very good. Moving along, we do have a resolution this evening. That's application number 25010PB. That's the Clubhouse of Somerset County LLC, not just golf. Are there any comments, questions, or changes to the record? Hearing none.
I mean, I'll simply reiterate that, the hearing was very productive. There was, some important concerns raised and addressed, and it's an excellent application that received full support then, and I will gladly move the resolution tonight.
That's Councilman Kirsch. I'll need a second.
I'll second.
That's Ms. Chartowitz. Could I have a roll call, please?
For the record, Ms. Sikora and Mr. Banga are not eligible.
Okay.
Chairman Vesio,
Yes.
Councilman Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Pappas.
Yes.
Mr. Magora. Yes. Mr. Wang. Ms. Chartowich.
Yes.
Mr. Chowdhury.
Yes.
Okay, moving along to our sole application this evening. That's the Wine Outlet of Bridgewater LLC, Block 349, Lot 5, commonly known as 155 Promenade Boulevard. And who will be representing the applicant this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Suvel, attorney for the applicant. This is an application for sign variance relief for the property at 155 Promenade Boulevard, but more specifically for the one tenant within the shopping center, the Wine Outlet. As the board probably knows better than I, the Bed Bath & Beyond used to occupy that space. The Bed Bath & Beyond left, and the space was then split into two tenants, one being the Burlington Coat Factory, which is there, and the other being the Wine Outlet. The Burlington Coat Factory, I would say, occupies more of the original Bed Bath space, but it was split up. So as of right now, the Wine Outlet has one sign on the facade of the building over the entrance that just says Wine Outlet, and it does have a sign on the rear of the site, sort of on the service area, that does say Wine, Beer, and Spirits. The reason that we're here is that when the store first opened back in May, the applicant had banner signs or temporary signs up that said Wine, Beer, and Spirits, and they were performing quite well. They took those down because they were temporary banner signs, and then they saw foot traffic diminish. And the complaint that they were getting was that people didn't know that they sold other things than just wine. So they actually put those, if you went there this evening, like I did before the meeting, they actually reapplied to the town and got permits for those temporary signs to put back up that say Wine, Beer, and Spirits, and there's two of them. They're actually quite large on either side. So the goal here is to remove those two temporary signs and just have one more permanent sign on the front of the facade that says Wine, Beer, and Spirits. And as you'll see, and as our planning testimony will show, the Wine Outlet sign that's currently there is much smaller than the existing signs in the shopping center. For example, Michael's, Bob's Furniture, PetSmart, and many of them also have other, I'll call it informational or wayfinding signs similar to what we're asking for here. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I just have one witness that I plan on calling. He's our professional planner. He'll go through the one sign that we're seeking the relief for. I submitted my affidavit of service and publication to the board, so that should be in order. So if the board doesn't have any questions, I'd be happy to call Mr. Flynn as our planning witness.
Please bring him forward.
Okay. Take the mic, Matt, so you have it.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're going to give in connection with this hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Could you state and spell your name for the record?
Matthew Flynn, F-L-Y-N-N.
And you want me to go through his qualifications, Mr. Peck?
Please do.
Yeah.
Matt, if you could just give the board the benefit of your educational background, licenses held, and experience testifying before similar boards, including if you've testified in Bridgewater as well.
Sure. Education comes from Rutgers University, master's degree in planning and I'll do it. Master's degree in planning and public policy, professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as the AICP license, which is the national licensure for planners. Both are in good standing. I've testified before over 100 boards across the state, including, I believe, this one, but definitely the zoning board.
Okay.
Does the board have any objection to Mr. Flynn's qualifications?
No, your license is current?
Yes.
No other question.
So what's the board's preference in terms of where I put my easel? Right here is good?
Maximum visibility, either right here or on the other side of the... yeah.
Typically, in front of that service door is where most people do it.
So the board accepts Mr. Flynn's qualifications? Sorry.
Yes.
If you said that, sorry.
If you could move it
Closer to the table.
Just
Right where you're
corner of
standing
the
now.
t-
Perfect.
Yeah.
And are these just blow-ups of
Yes.
what was already submitted with the application?
Yeah, there'll be one exhibit that we have that's in addition to that, but this, what you're seeing right now is exactly what you have in your packets.
So essentially what we're looking at here is...
Matt, just before you do that, just the foundational questions. You visited the site and the surrounding area,
Yes.
and you reviewed all the application materials, and you reviewed the review letter from the board planner as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead. And just indicate what sheet you're pointing to.
So this will be sheet 1 of 2, prepared by Murdoch Engineering. Basically, this is what Mr. Tavel just explained to the board. Right now, we have a couple temporary banner signs that will be removed subsequent to this application. This main wine outlet sign is there today, as was explained by council, which measures at approximately 127.9 square feet. And the reason that we're here this evening is because we are requesting this additional signage off to the left on this page, which comes out to 110 square feet. And basically the reason that we're here this evening is we're seeking a variance for signage area. We have to take the aggregate of all the signs, and there's also one in the back, which brings us to about 310 square feet, whereas the maximum allowance is 100 square feet. So basically what I want to do is, just to sort of flip through this real quick, is show the board the other sign that's out there today. This is on the back. This is, again, sheet 1 of 2. I'm not sure how he's labeled these, but this is, again, sheet 1 of 2. It's the back of the building. And that sign is 72.4 square feet. And so as council mentioned, really the point of this additional signage is to add that descriptor in terms of providing customers better clarity in terms of the products that are offered here at Wine Outlet. Obviously, as the name implies, people may believe that we only sell wine here, but of course this additional signage clarifies that in terms of the other offerings. A quick Google search will actually show you that most of the other wine outlets have description signs, such as this one, that say wine, beer, and spirits, for the exact reason that council has laid out. It's just it's a better descriptor of what this business offers here. So with that, and I can refer back to this as needed, but I do have another exhibit that has not been submitted. Yeah, so we'll call this A1, I guess. So Exhibit A1 is a 7-page exhibit consisting of some drone shots taken by my office earlier today, December 2nd, 2025. And just while that's getting distributed there, basically what it depicts is obviously the subject property, as well as all the other signs that we have on this building here.
And Matt, that was taken as of today, so it's completely accurate as to what's out there. Okay.
So just to start off here, page 1, clearly we see the existing sign. If we compare that sign with just the immediate signage to the left and to the right, we can see that it is, I would say, somewhat undersized in comparison to the Bob's Discount Furniture on the left of that image, as well as the Burlington Coat Factory signage that's over there to the right. And then sheet 2 just zooms in on some of these other signs here. Bob's Discount Furniture, we actually, our sign vendor, took the measurements of that sign, so we do have the benefit of that. And altogether, we have the front signs, and then we have the sign on the side there, which I've put on the top left corner of sheet 2. And if this wants to load, I had that. So altogether, in terms of the Bob's Discount Furniture, we're looking at 337.1 square feet. And that's, again, in terms of the front as well as the side signage. Whereas we're
Sorry, you
proposing
said Bob's was
337.1 square feet
Total,
total.
front and side.
It's the front and the side. And our 310 square feet is, again, the front and the back.
To your, may I ask a question? Is that appropriate at this time? To your knowledge, and maybe this is also a question for Ms. Sarmad, to your knowledge, is the signage at Bob's Furniture, Burlington Coat Factory, Marshall's, Michael's, and PetSmart, are they conforming, or at some point did they seek relief to be non-conforming?
That I would defer to Ms. Sarmad in terms of if they received relief, but based on my approximations, they are all well over 100 square feet.
their
Whether they
their
received-
building facades are larger.
Right, their building facades are much larger in their square footage, and I guess, Ms. Sarmad, if you could maybe educate all of us, how do we calculate permissible signage?
Sure. So in my review memo, page 3 includes the section for the signage requirements for the PRCPD zone specifically. So this was done, all of these tenants were all done as one development. And they did permit at that time, when they were coming for approval, not to exceed 7% of the total area of the building facade, and also would be designed to complement the building architecture. And so what happened with those was likely that they were approved as part of a site plan or a development plan, were approved, and as tenants changed, they were grandfathered into those sign areas. So Bed Bath & Beyond had quite a large sign area. As far as I know, Burlington Coat Factory did not come in with a variance for a sign before this board. I think they applied to be a zoning permit, and so I think they were approved because of what the sign that was previously there, the Bed Bath & Beyond, was pretty large. Similarly, the change from the Babies R Us to the Bob's, I mean, Bob's has a smaller sign than Babies R Us did, but those I don't believe required any variance relief. This is unique because this was a single tenant suite previously when it was Bed Bath & Beyond, which has been now split into two, the Burlington Coat Factory and the wine outlet. And so the facade area has been reduced now by virtue of the fact that there are now two tenant suites rather than one.
And when you say split, was that split in half or some?
I can give you the approximate number, Mr. Kirsch. So from speaking to my client, the Bed Bath space was about 40,000 square feet. You know, those are pretty big stores when they were open. And now the Burlington took 25, and our client, I know how much our client has, 15. So that's why I was able to figure out the other is 25.
So the vacant space is 25?
It's not vacant. Burlington is in the one space, and our client, Wine Outlet, is in the other space. They're both currently operating.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because what I'm seeing is your sign is above, what I guess I would call the right side entrance. You have that full space between Bob's and Burlington?
Burlington is on the other side of the wine outlet. So if you're looking at the store, Burlington is to the right and Bob's is to the left.
And you have the full space between Bob's and
Correct.
Burlington?
That's right.
Okay. But your sign is, it looks like there's two entrances, or could be two entrances?
There's only one. If you go to the store today, there's one entrance.
All right.
You can see from the rooftop, like where it splits between Bob's and Wine Outlet.
Okay.
Okay. Can I have Matt did we answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so your total space is how much? 20?
The interior space is 15,000 square.
15,000. And what is the space of the full frontage of the building, square foot?
Oh, yeah, actually, I do have that. If you, I can tell you what it is. It's 340 inches by 970 inches. So if you calculate that by 12, it's, Matt, do you want to do that math real quick? Yeah, I got it. Never mind, I got it. I just want to be able to answer the question. It's approximately 81 by 28. Our,
Whole
our,
building that contains Bob's, the wine outlet in Burlington?
no, just our space is,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I just have the measurements for our space. I thought
So I get
I'm sorry, that was
2,290 square feet.
of the frontage.
Yeah.
Of the frontage, correct.
What is the facade frontage of Bob's? Front and side and rear. So the number that you've just given us, 81 by 28, is that just the front?
81 by 28, correct, the facade.
And then-
That's what you would have to calculate to get our number.
But you're also including the square footage from the sign to the rear.
So, Mr. Pappas, the way that I think this should be viewed, and I spoke to Ms. Sarmat about it, is that the back of the building is actually a separate facade, and I believe that's why they got a permit for it, because it conformed, the sign in the back conformed. And then the one wine outlet sign that we got in the front also conformed. So we're really just talking about this one sign. That's,
So,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
understand. So, but Bob's, you made reference, Mr. Flynn made reference to the square footage of the Bob's sign as 337 square feet.
Total, yes. We, the one large sign that they have on the front that faces the parking lot.
And the side.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving you the breakdown, so you have it.
Go ahead.
The big Bob's Furniture sign that you see there, we had our sign vendor calculate it, and it's 196.3 square feet. And then the mattress sign to the right of it, if you're looking at the exhibit,
Yep.
is 47.5 square feet. So
If
they're,
you add those up, it's 243.8.
The two of those together.
yes.
And then earlier, someone said 337.
Yeah, we counted the side, but if you don't count that side, if you just assume that is a separate facade, it's just the 196.3 plus 47.5 for the facade that we're also talking about.
And what is the facade of Bob's, the entire facade of the store?
I don't know if we've calculated that. I could have Matt try to do that.
It is relevant. I think it's relevant.
Okay, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think all these calculators are relevant because proportionality is important.
No, I don't disagree. I think can Matt just go through his testimony, and then if we have.
That may be.
Is that okay, everybody? And then we can go back if the board needs clarity on some of these
Yes.
numbers, we could do that?
Proceed with the testimony.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess, at the end of the day, that's a calculation that I may be able to do on the fly, but I think it makes more sense to sort of wrap up the testimony. I think I'm still on sheet 2 here. The important thing to note here is, as we said, the front signage of Bob's comes out to approximately 240 square feet, which is pretty much what we're proposing for our front facade. The other important thing to note is that Bob's also has that descriptor sign, which is mattresses, off to the right there that we can see. So we are matching that sort of pattern of having the main brand name and then that description signage that describes the offerings in the business. So just flipping through here, we see Burlington on sheet 3, which I calculated at over 200 square feet, just to be conservative. Sheet 4, really all these signs, again, just to be conservative, I want to say with confidence that they're well over 200 square feet, but of course I don't want to give any exact measurements. Just flipping along here, really just to show. Sheet 5, Michael's, again, they have the arts and crafts store, which is sort of a slogan there. But again, it is sort of that description that we're seeking here. And then sheet 6 shows the PetSmart at the other end of the building there. Again, this does have those descriptor signage. It says grooming on one side, and then it says pet hospital on the other. So a little bit of a description of the offerings of the business. And then sheet 7 just shows the back, which really is not the subject of the application this evening. But again, we do have that wine outlet sign on the back there, just to show them. So really just to sort of sum up here, from a planning perspective, at the end of the day, what the applicant wanted to do was to provide something that is consistent with everything that we see along this building in terms of the area of the sign, in terms of the visibility. Really, when we look at this particular property, we see a very large parking lot, and there is a certain amount of signage size that is needed in order to effectuate safe wayfinding visibility. On top of that, also, as I said, a description of what's offered at this store. We see the word wine, we automatically assume that wine is the only thing that's offered. If we're looking for other types of alcohol, we might not bother to stop in here. So really, I would say that any tenant that was to utilize this space would likely be seeking a similar variance. It's not really specific to this tenant per se. This is a building that sort of requires that larger sign area for, again, wayfinding across this vast parking lot. So again, the variance that we're seeking, I guess specifically, is the 310.3 square feet. But again, that's including that sign in the back. But I believe that's how Ms. Sarmad wants us to phrase the variance relief. So just to tie all of that into the statutory criteria, I think we can look to the C2 balancing test. The benefits of the application as a whole substantially outweigh any detriment. In terms of the benefits, we look to the municipal land use law, the purposes of zoning set forth therein. Why do we have these requirements in the first place? Purpose A, promotion of the general welfare. Here, as I said, this effectuates safe and efficient wayfinding. It is a large parking lot. If the signage was at 100 square feet, I think that this tenant would be at somewhat of a disadvantage compared with all of the other tenants in the building. And like I said, this is typical signage, so when we talk about brand recognition, this is the signage that you would expect if you were looking for a wine outlet. Again, a simple Google search will show that this is the branding that is consistent across all of their stores. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations, effectuating the success of a permitted use, an approved use in the zone with what I would say is reasonable signage, again, for wayfinding and visibility, and more specifically, clarity of the services that are provided by the business. Purpose I, desirable visual environment. Again, I'll go back to compatibility here. I think that really none of the signs are compliant at 100 square feet. I understand the board's concerns in terms of the proportionality argument, but based on my interpretation of the ordinance, it's a whichever is less, so it's 7% or 100 square feet, whichever is less. And so for that reason, I would say that all of the signs are necessarily non-compliant in that regard.
And Matt, just putting the square footages and the numeric calculations aside, do you think that this proposal blends in with the facade of the whole center there, or do you think it's out of character? Can you give an opinion on that?
I think it's in character, especially if we look at sheet 1 here, we can see that the existing sign is sort of dwarfed by some of these other signs in the area. By providing some extra signage, I think it does sort of bump this tenant up to par with what we have in the rest of the building there.
And the sign doesn't face into any residential zones, it just faces into the shopping center parking lot, correct?
That's correct.
So in your opinion, would there be any negative impacts on the surrounding area?
No. I would say in terms of the negatives, this is a modest, tasteful sign despite the relief being sought. It's compatible. Like council mentioned, it doesn't face a public roadway. It faces a vast parking lot where people may be driving all the way from that Costco, if we're familiar with the shopping center, which I'm sure we are. And I would say, again, that in terms of impacts to the zone plan, the relief relates to a specific property that has compatibility with the rest of the building. It would not make planning sense for this business to have substantially smaller signage than the rest. And so for those reasons, I would say the negative criteria is met, no substantial detriment to the public or to the zone. This is a property that's remote from residential, and really it just serves the motoring public in the parking lot.
Okay, and then just a couple other things just for the board's edification. Obviously, if this sign were approved, those temporary signs where there's 2 of them, that is in sheet number 1 would be removed, correct?
That's correct.
So the quantity would be reduced. Also, the timing of the lighting of the signage, it goes off pretty much right after closing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So in your professional opinion, the positive criteria is met as multiple purposes. We only need to advance one, but multiple purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced?
Yeah, purpose A, G, I, and M.
Okay. And you also believe that the negative criteria is met, correct?
That's correct.
And that there's no, and that the benefits of granting this variance would substantially outweigh any detriments?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I just wanted him to put the planning testimony on the record. We're obviously happy to answer any questions that the board may have in addition.
Thank you, Mr. Feld. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Are there any questions regarding the testimony just heard? Mr. Chowdhury.
May I ask, please?
Please.
Okay, I think my question is basically in line with what Mr. Papas asked. So obviously, you don't know what the square feet of Bob's furniture is, right?
I know what the square footage of the signs are.
Yeah, signs you are.
But I did not, you're right, I did not specifically measure, the sign company did not measure the whole facade, but we could try to get that number for you if
Okay, so the reason I'm asking, I'm just estimating the number of, space with yours versus Bob's. I think Bob has a less than yours, if I'm just assuming that, just picture-wise.
Has less, what were you saying?
Less square feet than yours.
If that's something important for the board, we should figure out what that is to be
Ms.
accurate.
Sarmad, did you have a comment to add to that?
While Mr. Flynn was finishing his testimony, I did do like kind of an off-the-cuff calculation, so take it with a grain of salt. But I just did an estimate based on the panel lengths that they provided, the dimensions on their plan. They have 4 kind of, you'll see the way the building's broken up from the architecture. And so I did the calculation of their frontage with that, and then I looked at, Google Earth to see how many panels, that Bob's had. And Bob's has 6 kind of sections on the storefront, whereas the wine outlet has 4. And not surprisingly, Bob's has about 50% more area on the frontage. So the facade area for wine outlet is approximately, I'm rounding up here, 2,200. I'm just trying to give a round number. Whereas the Bob's, also rounding up a little bit, is about 3,800 square feet.
Did you look at Burlington, or can you do a quick estimate of Burlington? I'm not going to do the whole complex.
Burlington's a little different because it's taller, and I don't know how tall it is. I was basing the height off of the wine outlet from the dimensions we have on their plans. Burlington does appear to be a little bit taller, and I actually don't know how much of the space Burlington has beyond that main storefront. If it goes up to the Marshalls, it looks like it goes past 1. So let me see if I can do that real quick.
While she's doing that, I would concur with what Ms. Sarmad said about the Bob's frontage. And just based on I'll wait for her response, but I would say that the Burlington is much closer in terms of the frontage length compared to the wine outlet. And closer to the frontage length. It's a little bit longer, but I'm comparing it to the wine outlet. Yeah. And another thing that was mentioned that maybe I should have mentioned earlier is that a lot of these tenants have, if we see the Burlington on sheet 1, for example, that sign panel sort of extends higher than the wine outlet panel, and that's actually sort of a recurring theme throughout this shopping center. So that does give, again, a somewhat of a benefit to some of these other tenants where the wine outlet does not have that sort of architectural feature as pronounced as some of these other tenants.
I'd argue, though, that the wine outlet rented that space knowing that ahead of time.
Agreed.
So I think on an estimation, Nancy gave me the survey, which does have some of the front, so I was able to do a better estimate of the frontage. The length of the former Bed Bath, now Burlington, from the darker part that's taller onto the edge of the Marshalls is approximately 110 feet. I estimated that the kind of parapet of that portion goes up maybe 3 to 4 feet higher than the building here for the wine outlet. So I think the Burlington probably has about 3,500 square feet of facade, rounding up. So a little less than Bob's, actually.
So can I just ask a question, just because this is very important for the applicant? I mean,
If I could have Mr.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. Chowdhury finish his question.
no problem, of
Well, I
course.
interrupted him, so I'd like him to finish his thought.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me some of that, the information anyway. I was about to go that direction, so you already gave me the exact number. So looks like that even if you consider all the figures, you actually have, Burlington has a 25,000 square feet inside, based on your
The inside, yes.
inside, and Burlington has a front side is 3,500, like, our planner, professional planner said. So they have got, the sign is about 200 square feet based on what you just, commented, right? About 200 square feet. Sign is for Burlington?
The sign for Burlington, I said it's something north of 200. I'm not
Okay.
sure exactly.
Okay. Well, make it 250. So based on even that comparison, your sign is much more than what the comparison is. That's what I'm getting into it.
Compared to Burlington?
Comparison to the Burlington, at least. And Bob's store, obviously, we don't know the square feet. So, only thing is we know Bob's store is that it has got 237 square feet, 243 square feet on signage against 3,800 face square feet. And yours is 237 square feet against the face square feet of 2,200 and inside square feet of 15,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think the main point here is that despite the relative sizes of the tenant spaces, we see this sort of consistent theme of around 250 square feet going upwards of 300 square feet. And the reason for that, again, despite the size of the tenants, is that this is a large property, and that is sort of the size that is necessary to effectuate visibility. Again, despite the size of the tenant signs, we do see this consistent theme of all these signs are relatively large. And so, for that reason, I think it's not going to stand out.
No, you're right. We're not basically questioning about the signs are large or small. We're considering the comparisons wise, your sign has a much, at least somewhat larger square feet than comparatively others. That's what we are getting into it based on the figures that you have given now. My question to you is it possible that you can actually, you could reduce the, wine, spirit, and beer signs somewhat less so that at least you can be around, instead of 237 square feet, you are around about 210 or something like that?
I would have to ask the client, but I can ask that question.
No, yeah, that's one of the things that
It wouldn't be my
you could
decision,
think
but I
about.
could ask the client that question.
That will basically match the proportional, comments that Mr. Pappas has made.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury.
If I can add to that, why, when the original sign that says wine outlet, why did that not include the words wine, beer, and spirits?
Ask the question again, Mr. Pappas, so I just understand.
The wine outlet sign above the doorway. Why would that not have included the words wine, beer, and spirits that you're here seeking permission to?
I don't know why the sign vendor doesn't, put that at the bottom. Your question is why wasn't that put at the bottom, or why wasn't that somehow incorporated into that? I can't answer that for the designer of the sign. I don't know.
So why couldn't that be changed to add that instead of seeking this variance, which
It would still require relief if that was added to the sign, because the sign's already up and manufactured, so it would. But can I just pose a question to the?
Let me finish my thought.
Sure, go ahead, please.
The existing sign above the door, wine outlet, that is 100.
Oh, you want to know the total for that one?
What's the square footage of the wine outlet sign above the doorway?
Yeah, sure, I can give you that. It's 127.9.
Okay, so 127, and the new sign proposed?
110.
110. And then the sign to the rear is 27?
The sign in the back is 79, I think.
72.4.
72, sorry.
Okay. And then, again, we've been talking about comparisons. Bob's has significantly a larger facade, right? And the sign coverage of that sign is approximately the same, right? So the Bob's Furniture sign on the facade is similar to the two signs that would be on the wine outlet facade. right?
No, if you just take the facade facing the parking lot, the Bob's is 196 and 47.5, which is what, Matt?
It's substantially similar. It's
Okay.
243. We're proposing like 247.
Okay, so you're proposing a larger sign with a smaller facade.
It's actually
Larger sign coverage of your facade proportionately as compared to Bob's, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. So again, I'd go back to why couldn't the wine outlet sign above the door be redesigned with the words wine, beer, and spirits incorporated into the same side?
Okay.
Sign.
So can I give what I think is the practical answer to your question? So I think the practical answer to your question is they've designed and paid for that sign that's up there now. So they're not going to remove that. That would be a very expensive endeavor. But to go to what Mr. Kahadri said earlier, and maybe to what you're alluding to, is perhaps they can do something that is not as substantial, if that's the board's concern, to incorporate what the message that they want to incorporate into the facade.
That's where I'm headed.
Okay, so then, can I ask this then? I think I've seen from this board, and all boards are different, that the proportionality and the percentages of all the facades are critical to your thinking on this application. So I don't want to guess. I know we've estimated some of the numbers, but I'd rather get them 100% right and then see where we are if we can reduce the sign. I can't do that on my own. I have to ask the client if they're willing to do that. I do know that the wine, beer, and spirits sign is critical to their business. They have found an actual drop-off from when they take down those temporary signs. So I would have to ask them if we could reduce the sign if that's what.
And your client's not here?
Because of the weather, they weren't able to come.
So it sounds like you're gathering homework.
That's what in trying to enter into a productive dialogue with the board, I get the sense that that's what you're asking.
No, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Pappas, did you have anything else? Go ahead.
I was just going to throw out a suggestion. I mean, you can't see the fine wine, beer, and spirits from the other side. I'm driving by there all the time. I've been in.
You're right. You're 100% right.
I mean, why wouldn't they just move that from the back to the front?
It would still require the relief, though, because of the fact that you would have over the 100 square feet on that frontage on
one side.
Yeah, we'd still be here asking you for something on that. But to that point, and
Expensive and
move it, right?
That's 40,000 square foot, 40
No, the
square
small.
foot less than rear.
Yeah, if you look at these three, when I do a Google search, because I did a Google search when I said to, most of the wine outlets have it right underneath, and it's about that size. I'm not measuring.
The other thing that I just wanted the board to be aware of that I was going to ask Matt, and I just forgot to when we we're going in this discussion, the main sign, the main wine outlet sign, the way that it's oriented in the shopping center, Matt, right? When the trees are in full bloom that are in the shopping center, they actually obstruct that sign as you enter from the Costco, correct?
Yeah, and you could see that on sheet 1. It's one of the few strips with trees that run straight up to our tenant space.
Oh, you mean the strip between where the cars are parked?
Correct.
Right, so when that's in full bloom, that obstructs the wine outlet sign, and I know Ms. Sikora was right, what she said earlier. They took that space knowing that was there. I completely understand that, but by splitting that, it does make it kind of a unique little space where having that signage to the left of the wine outlet does facilitate, identification for the business. But what I assume is that the board wants us to go do that homework and see if we can.
My concern is that if this is approved, then you have these other stores that could come seeking larger signs. Because if this board approves a proportional increase for the sign for the smaller facade of this store, what's to prevent Bob's to come, ask for a larger, and to wrap around to the other side, and then where does it end?
I would actually venture to say that in this case, we're actually beyond the proportional argument because we're beyond the 100 square feet. So the proportion requirement is actually not in play.
Why is that?
Because it's whichever is less. So it's the 7% of the facade or 100 square feet. You're capped at 100 square feet no matter what.
Who is capped?
Any,
Board is not.
Any-
Board is not, could approve a larger sign.
of course, yeah, but it would be a variance, is what I'm saying.
Well, that's what you're here for. You're here for a variance, and other store owners could come seeking another variance for a larger sign. My point is where does this end? And you're not, addressing that, Mr. Flynn. You're trying to avoid that point, in my view.
Mr. Chairman, if I can follow Mr. Pappas. And Ashley, are we done?
Well, I'm done.
Okay. So I'm just curious, Mr. Flynn, have you looked at the Tinton Falls, Holmdel, Brick Township, or Point Pleasant wine outlets?
I have not.
No, okay. So what Mr. Pappas brought up is that there's a consistency across the marketing where the fine wine, beer, and spirits are in yellow and they're all below. So I would think as a marketer, I don't know if this is a franchise, I don't know, is Wine Outlet a franchise or?
It's the same owner. It's the
Same owner. So to keep consistency with branding, that you would want to continue that, you would want to continue that type of signage. I just don't, I just don't see the, from a consistency perspective, you can take a look at Bob's, you can look at Burlington. I mean, you guys showed us multiple different examples, but any of the additional wording that you're looking to, create a buzz or differentiation with the Wine Outlet from just wine, it's all recognizable within the confines, for the most part, below the main sign, the main facade.
I think, like I said before, and again, I know the response is going to be you took that space, so you knew what you were taking. But I think the issue is the visibility of that one main sign somehow gets obstructed much of the time. But let's do this. Let me get all those measurements and percentages for the board, so we're all talking about everything that's accurate. And then I will ask the client if there's any alternatives, whether it be reduction of the sign that we've proposed, or to your question, whether it could be modified as to where it is on the facade. I'll do that because I clearly.
I have a few other, Mr.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
If I may, I have a few other things to add, to your list. And thank you for being collaborative here. I mean, I think that's typically how we get our best solutions. Mr. Pappas, made an excellent point, which I was about to raise. And while each and every land use case is different, and one cannot necessarily be used as precedent for another, the reality is one can often serve as at least a partial precedent for another. And one thing that we do not want to see, whether at this shopping complex or elsewhere in Bridgewater, we don't want to see a sign war going on. We don't want to have, everybody trying to one-up the most recent. So that's kind of the spirit. Now, the other, the numbers I'm looking at, and I'm using somewhat round numbers, the Bob's facade, 3,800 feet, your facade, 2,200 feet, Burlington, 3,500. That's kind of the basis of my thought process. Just focusing, though, on Bob's, because there's some uncertainty as to exactly what the size is of Burlington. So your frontage is 58% of, roughly 58% of Bob's. That's 2,200 divided by 3,800. So you're smaller, and again, to me, that doesn't mean you need to be, that much smaller, but, your area is smaller. Now, Bob's, if the math is right, is 244 of 3,800, which is 6.4%. So it would appear as if they are under the 7% that's noted in Ms. Sarmad's memo. Again, these are possibly rounded numbers. Your 238, and I'm only talking about the front. I have no concern about the back. I'm only looking at the front. The 238 as a percentage of 2,200 is 10.8. So 10 point, you're smaller. You're at 10.8. They're larger. They're at 6.4. So those are numbers that kind of stand out to me. The other numbers that stand out to me is mattresses. is 47 and a half. Their mains, what I guess I'll call their main sign is 196. So their mattresses, their descriptor is like 24% of their main sign. Your proposed descriptor is 110 feet.
It's almost equal. It's almost equal.
Almost equal. It's 85%. So,
That's a fair point.
I think that there's likely willingness to work here. I should have also stated at the outset that we want to see this and every business in Bridgewater be wildly successful. It's in everybody's best interest for all of our businesses to operate at maximum potential. But the balancing that we're looking for is look, feel, proportionality, not getting into a sign war, not getting into an escalating sign war.
I hear exactly what you're saying. I do think that this is specific just because of the confusion that they've heard from customers about, when they first opened versus when they put up the temporary signs. And, there was some, I guess, uncertainty as to what was sold there. So that's really what, necessitated this application. But I will go back to the client and we'll reevaluate this and try to address the concerns that you have.
I don't want to get into a deep, philosophical conversation about marketing.
It's okay.
But I do it for a living. But I understand the importance of branding, and I understand the importance of wayfinding and all that other stuff. It's critically important. I don't mean to diminish it, but I guess what I wonder is, like, people are at Costco, and by the way, Costco sells same or similar products, right? Not in Bridgewater. You're correct. That's the one in North Plainfield. All right, sorry. You're correct. It's the tire store that's off to the right. Sorry. I got the two locations mixed up.
As Edison's.
I guess what I also wonder is, are people coming in there and, like, as an impulse, they're like, oh yeah, I need, beer, wine, and spirits. Is it really an impulse buy?
All I would say to you, just again, this is not really a legal argument. This is just more like what I would give you as a person, is that they wouldn't pay for me and Matt to be here if it wasn't important.
Oh, I understand that.
And the sign vendor to create this, if it wasn't truly a concern. But I also hear your concern. I think the point you made about the main sign and the secondary sign being somewhat comparable in size was a valid comment. As much as the client would like it to be that way, I hear what you're saying there. So let me get the numbers on the rest of the facades. Make sure that we're all not approximating, that we're getting the real numbers. And then I'll speak to the client about the concerns that you had about the actual sign area.
Thank you.
Is that fair enough?
Well, that'll work with us. At that point, if you could contact our office or potentially Ms. Probst, what could we offer as a return date?
Yeah, because this will affect notice.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take us that long to figure this out and get you, if we do revise the plans, to get you a revision. And I don't think we'll be up here for that long either if we come back, just to.
We can accommodate on the 16th of December. We have a extension of approval.
Mm-hmm.
And we can fit this.
Yeah, and I would say this.
Does December 16th work?
I think that'll work, because I think if anything, we're going to make the plans smaller. We're not going to come back with anything bigger. So I think our notice is fine in terms of the magnitude, because it's only going to be diminished. And if we have plans, I don't think they need to be on file 10 days, because, again, anything would probably be reduced versus made larger. So is that fair enough?
That does. Thank you very much.
I think it would be important to provide the staff copies
course,
of what you're
of course.
proposing in advance, though, so they
Yeah,
can.
no problem. No problem.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have
Mr.
one
Wang.
question, yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed that part. What's the illumination levels of the sign?
My understanding is that the wine outlet now they close at 10 when I ask the client, and my understanding is it shuts off at 12.
So the wine outlet and all
I don't know
the
about
two
the rest
signs
of the
gonna
tenants, Mr. Wang, but just the wine outlet sign Shuts down at midnight, is my understanding.
Okay, but the second sign is also illuminated, right?
Yes, and that would shut off at the same time as the other sign if it was approved.
Okay, all right,
Any
so,
top of mind questions? Okay, Mr.
I'm sorry,
Wang?
I have to just correct myself. Edison is the one that has, the Edison Costco is the one that has liquor. I know there's one that's in the general.
And Plainfield too.
Oh, well, all right, according to
Yeah, usually supermarkets.
According to Dr. Google, there's only two. I guess there's three. All right.
Only supermarkets, I think, by liquor licensing law are limited to how many of their stores can have alcohol.
I knew there was a Costco somewhere here that I'd seen it.
Just the one item is, since you are going to be, again, I don't think that the existing signage needs to be replaced. So I would just be curious to see if you were to put that row below, as you're doing the due diligence, I don't think you need to replace the entire sign, but.
I'll ask the client and the sign vendor.
I think it's not being done because of the obstruction. I would be okay with it on the side as a descriptor like the rest of them if it was just smaller.
Okay, no, fair enough. I appreciate everybody being very candid with their comments. It's helpful to try to, get to where we need to get to.
Mr. Wang, did you want to close out with your comment?
yeah, I just say that, this one outlet for this, Costco in Edison had that store, and this one going to be addition to this shopping center, right? So I don't think it's going to be a concern if you put this, the second sign underneath the main sign there. People are going to know there's a liquor store there, That won't be a, to me, I don't know what this hardship, if there are any difficulties if we don't combine these two signs together,
Okay.
Yeah, it's just some of my comment, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. If there are any other questions, I think we'll save it for the next meeting.
I do have one question now.
Quick one.
I see Costco, I'm estimating, is about 250 feet away from the signs. And for a person with average vision, whatever that is, what would be the letter height on the sign to be legible from Costco's?
You mean if you put a,
Some architect someplace has that.
yeah, the traffic engineers cite the AASHTO standards for stuff like that. But I don't know, I don't know what it would be. You're saying what the sight line would be for a driver. What would the readability of this letters be, what distance and what size they would have to be? I don't know. There is a formula for that, but I think a traffic engineer is somebody that would know that. I could try to find that out.
I'm thinking the people come out of Costco's, they've spent some money, they have some left.
Not
They
much.
look over at the wines. Can they read that entire sign from Costco? Just a thought.
Okay.
On how high the letters should be.
Understood, okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tavel. Let me know that this application will be carried to December 16th without further notice.
Yeah, right, for any public here or watching online, right? There'll be no further notice given. This matter is being carried to the December 16th meeting.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Same place, same time, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving along to our last item on the agenda this evening, that is our master plan reexamination for a public hearing on the Township of Bridgewater's master plan reexamination. Ms. Sarmed, would you like to brief the board on the matter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, give me 1 second. Just
I'll give you as many as you need.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members and members of the public. Just a brief presentation, or, it can be as long as we need it to be. But what's been provided to the board and what has been noticed for is a reexamination report of the Bridgewater Township Master Plan. I know we just adopted a comprehensive master plan on September 30th of this year. And I just want to let the board know, particularly if you have not been part of a master plan reexamination report before, what it is. It's very different from a master plan. I like to think of comprehensive master plans as sometimes once or twice in a lifetime documents where it's very forward-thinking. It looks out towards 20 years or so. It looks comprehensively at a lot of different parts of the township, as you saw in all those sections, and has a lot that goes into it as far as thinking about everything that's going on cohesively. A master plan reexamination report is a statutory requirement that if you don't do a master plan, you have to look at your master plan every 10 years. And a lot of times, and Bridgewater included, municipalities utilize this as a way to make sure that they're staying on their master plan, reexamining those goals and recommendations of prior master plans, but not necessarily having to do a document that looks 20 years out every 10 years, because it is a big lift, both financially and time-wise, and it's something that that document should represent, or a comprehensive master plan should represent all that time and input, and to redo it every few years would be kind of a disservice to that document's, the time that went into that document. So a master plan re-exam does look a lot at a time and place. It is much more of a document that looks at what's going on right now, what's just happened since our last master plan, and any recommendations that come up. As you know, that master plan, that comprehensive master plan included not only goals and objectives township-wide, but also included a number of recommendations in each of the plan elements. So I think our land use element had probably 60 or more recommendations. And as I mentioned when I was presenting that document, that is a planning guide and a policy guide. It is not a document that makes any changes, codifies any changes. It simply makes recommendations, and it's really up to the governing body over time to utilize that document to make any changes or to prioritize any plans or planning analysis, any projects, et cetera. So they utilize those recommendations. And a master plan reexamination will make similar recommendations. It is also kind of a planning guide, a policy guide, but can hone in on some of those things. And you'll see in this report and from my presentation that it does hone in on some of those recommendations that were made in our most recent master plan, comprehensive master plan. And so some of the statutory requirements of a master plan reexam are that you have to look at the major problems and objectives relating to land development in the municipality at the time of the adoption of the last reexam, the extent to which such problems and objectives have been reduced or have been increased, the extent to which there have been significant changes in assumptions, policies, objectives, and that can be at the state, county, or local level, the specific changes recommended for the master plan or development regulations, if any, whether a new plan should be prepared, the recommendations of the planning board concerning any areas of redevelopment and noting if any had been adopted since the last master plan. And then finally, a new addition to the statutory requirements recently is that the planning board make recommendations regarding locations for development of public electric vehicle chargers and infrastructure. And so this is intended to be a periodic review of the master plan, but also can take a look, like I said, at a point in time. And so the first few sections just provide a little background, a little master plan history, and then as far as the major problems, goals, and objectives of the prior master plan documents, this does note that this board just recently adopted a master plan in September. It lists out all the general goals and objectives that are in that master plan, and also includes that there was another master plan element that was done earlier than that, which was in June, the June 30th, fourth round 2025 housing element fair share plan. So that was also a master plan element that was recently adopted and did include additional goals as well. And that was not part of the comprehensive master plan. As far as the extent to which problems and objectives has been reduced or increased, those goals that were and objectives that were all laid out in the previous section are assumed to remain valid because they were just adopted about a month, 2 months ago. And then in regards to the housing element fair share plan, the township has addressed its fourth round obligation and its constitutional requirements under the amended Fair Housing Act by adopting that housing element. The township is still right now going through the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program, which is the program at the state level that goes through with a judge and a special adjudicator to come to a consensus on the township's certification of that plan and any compliance that needs to happen as a result of that. And so that involves any parties that challenge the township's housing element, as well as Fair Share Housing Center if they did file a challenge. And that program's determination and the recommendation of the program from that process will determine if the township will continue to receive immunity from builders' remedy lawsuits. Certification of that plan per the state law does provide that the township will remain immune from anyone basically coming in and suing the town to build whatever they want. So it keeps our zoning intact, keeps our immunity intact, and the certification of our plan is important for those reasons. The next section is the extent to which there have been significant changes in assumptions, policies, and objectives. I did break some of these down by the larger, the more global state level. So the state development and redevelopment plan is currently in the works. It has been drafted at the state level. I believe a draft with certain comments has been released. I don't believe it has been, the full final plan has been adopted yet, but it is anticipated to be done by early next year. Some of these things might feel a little bit older, but just because we hadn't had a master plan re-exam that covered some of them, I did include them. So Governor Murphy signed into law the legalization of recreational cannabis. I did note that Bridgewater did adopt Ordinance 2103 in April of 2021, which prohibited all cannabis establishments within the municipality. The governor also signed into law certain housing exempt from zoning regulations relating to hospitals to construct housing for individuals who are homeless or housing insecure. The amended Fair Housing Act was signed by Governor Murphy in 2024, and I just outlined some of the changes to the amended Fair Housing Act from what was previously in the Fair Housing Act, and just noted the same thing I just mentioned about compliance with the deadlines established by that and the continuance of immunity by following those deadlines. And adopting a compliant plan. And then the changes to the municipal land use law. The municipal land use law now requires that a climate change-related hazard vulnerability assessment be adopted, which this board did adopt as part of the comprehensive master plan. That electric vehicle charging space requirements are put into place at a state level. It is state law, and municipalities can adopt are still subject to them, but can adopt local laws with minor variations to the state law. Other circumstances, just to cover the COVID-19 pandemic and some of the effects that it had on, long-term effects that it has on the importance of health and mental health, on infrastructure, public access to open and green spaces for gatherings, events, and recreational activities, and some of the emphasis that has come in the aftermath of that. The state of the commercial real estate market and trends of the New Jersey suburban office market in general, decline for demand because of a change in workforce trends, remote and hybrid options due to COVID-19, as well as other opportunities for how those spaces are transforming over time to allow for dining or more event spaces, more activity-based things rather than traditional retail sales. Transportation modes. So transportation has been changing as electric and self-driving vehicles have come into market. The New Jersey law that allows for electric bikes and scooters has also changed, and there has been an emphasis on local safety from police departments and emergency services on how those are regulated, and that is a continuing to emerge issue, and different public health and safety concerns with them, as well as e-commerce, same-day deliveries, food delivery services, which have all changed how we all see traffic on our roads, on our residential roads, a noticeable change in courier box truck frequencies in residential neighborhoods, which is increasing every day. And then finally, changes at the local level, one of them being that the township adopted a updated master plan, and included in that master plan in particular were certain recommendations, one of which I just elaborated on here that did make a recommendation that the number 22 under the land use element included that zone districts along Route 28 and Union Avenue should be studied to determine the overlap between commercial and residential uses as well as non-conforming uses. This has been something that has been ongoing. We've been looking at, in particular, the zoning map as inquiries come in. And just looking at the zoning in general on Route 28, there was a kind of a brief analysis done that has been incorporated into this master plan re-exam. This includes what is permitted right now in the primary commercial zone on Route 28, which is the C1 zone. There also is the MPD zone, which is the medical medical park district zone. And so it really looks at what are the existing permitted uses in those zones, what is the existing character, not only of the zoning, but what is actually in place. And so I included on page 12 what's called the land use land cover map, produced and publicly available by the DEP. On their GIS website, and you can see that, you know, while the zoning only includes pockets of commercial, the actual zoning, the permitted uses include pockets of commercial, there are a lot of corner properties along these intersections along Route 28 that are, you know, developed already as commercial properties. And so in looking at looking at just at this analysis, it does provide, you know, you are able to see the kind of character of the neighborhood. And, you know, this re-exam report includes that the zone could include other conditional uses that are more tailored to the zone, because there are general conditional uses that are currently permitted that just will never work in the zone because of the conditions that are required. And so it's just the results of the analysis, and then it'll feed into the recommendation section later on about potential ideas for how to keep the corridor with its character of being primarily or a mix of commercial and residential, and keeping it a thriving area of the township. Finally, there's a section on the relationship to other plans. Obviously, much of this re-exam report is related directly to the most recent master plan efforts, including the 2025 fourth round housing element, as I mentioned, and the importance of that, as well as the goals and, the recommendations from the land use element for the analysis of the Route 28 corridor. So those are directly linked to this master plan re-exam. And so there are a set of specific changes that are recommended as part of this master plan reexamination report. One of those, or the first of those, is that just to emphasize the importance and prevalence of the amended Fair Housing Act requirements and the township's commitment to its fourth round plan, is just to reiterate that it is a significant priority. So it does reiterate those 5 different sites that were all included in that housing element that was presented and adopted in June of 2025. It does also include, based upon feedback to this planning board in September, the ability to, or recommendation to, include certain provisions that would include adequate and appropriate access for the Cornell Boulevard property, as well as supplemental design standards to provide for buffering that were all brought up by the residents in September. And so that was one change from what was included in the housing element. It was one addition to respond to some of that feedback. Because they were valid concerns. As it relates to the analysis of the Route 28 corridor, the existing C1 zone, so the residential zones are not recommended to be changed, but the existing C1 zone is recommended to be modified to expand the permitted uses in the C1 zone to allow for a carefully crafted mixed-use zone that would not impose any kind of impacts through those conditions on the neighboring properties. The consideration for additional commercial uses under the conditional uses that would provide corridor-specific conditions and standards that ensure that they remain within the purposes of the neighborhood commercial zone, and that would have minimal impact on the adjacent residential uses. Some of these uses include a combination of entertainment and dining uses. So what we've noticed from traditional retail is this switch to more activity-based things. We have the clubhouse on Route 22, and so to keep strip malls and retail tenant spaces active and tenanted, that could be one option to include, So that would be, there would be conditions that limit outdoor dining noise and activity, maybe hours and things, and light and things like that, to make sure they're not a nuisance to the neighbors. A combination of fuel and convenience, sale of convenience items subject to conditions that impose buffering and landscape requirements, limit or prohibit truck traffic, include specific design standards, specifically that would be on like corner lots or something that has access to 28. Personal services that explicitly right now are not included under the C1 zone, like cosmetic services, which are very popular, and have a stricter minimum parking standard to address the potential for parking issues. Co-working or flex office spaces that could provide a service for freelance or remote workers, where traditional office space does not, so that's one consideration. And then any other similar uses that provide neighborhood scale commercial uses that could add to the C1 zone. Since the C1 zone does exist in other places outside of Route 28, it's recommended that any ordinance specify that as a condition for these considered uses, they require on Route 28, and more specifically within the corridor. And then, one second. There was one other change that I missed. I jumped right to the affordable housing. In the first paragraph, there was one other zone change that was recommended to the Bridgewater Regional Corporate Center zone, or the BRCC zone. This was brought up at a council meeting about a month ago, maybe less than a month ago, a few weeks ago. It was brought up that there is a potential for the Somerset Corporate Center just across the street to consider a new use that would permit a medical use for the zone. The corporate center is facing upcoming vacancies that do present a significant challenge to find new tenants in the declining office market. And so there has been a request for the township to consider an expansion of the permitted uses that would allow medical office uses with ancillary support services such as diagnostic, imaging, outpatient services, physical therapy, radiation therapy, and laboratory and testing facilities, so closer to a larger scale medical use. Not just a smaller like urgent care or something like that. This would be more of a sophisticated medical use. And this amendment could also include and consider maybe pad sites within the development to help, separate from the medical use, but to help keep the office amenitized and to attract office tenants for people that feel stuck in a corporate office center, could modernize it, and so that maybe limited food services, not like a major restaurant or a drive-through restaurant, but something like a fast casual coffee shop, smoothie shop, things like that are very limited in scope, smaller type food businesses that could help support the corporate campus. So that's one of the final recommendations. And then in the last two sections, these are statutory requirements. The master plan re-exam just includes that the township does have redevelopment areas, and the most recent of those, these are not new redevelopment areas, these are the existing ones, are the Graymark office track at 1200 Route 22, and then the Ethicon redevelopment area at 555 Route 22. It just provides an overview of where those stand, and that they have been designated as areas in need of redevelopment, but that only the Graymark office tract has a redevelopment plan. The Ethicon does not yet have one that's adopted. And finally, and it does not make any recommendations to new redevelopment areas at this time. Finally, the final section requires that the planning board make recommendations concerning locations appropriate for the development of public electric vehicle infrastructure. This is now state law to allow for electric vehicles, but this section specifically includes recommendations. The September 2022, master plan reexamination report included that Bridgewater Township does have some electric vehicle chargers that are located at private offices. There's a bank of charging stations at the Wawa on 28 in Chimney Rock and Foothill. Near the Promenade, that's near the Promenade Shopping Center, as well as the Bridgewater Commons Mall. I don't think there's any plans right now for any township-based ones, but some of the recommendations that could be considered by this board or through this master plan re-exam is that the township zoning ordinances be updated to be consistent with state law and adopt that. That was also a recommendation from the comprehensive master plan. And you can modify certain sections for design standards, payments, things like that. Consider providing make-ready spaces in the municipal parking lots or any other township properties as improvements are being made. So that some make-ready spaces just means that the electric conduit's put in. So if parking lots are being repaved or anything's being torn up, to consider that on township properties. That the township should seek out any kind of grant funding if they are undertaking any of those improvements for the installation or the actual structures and hardware. And then finally, the township could consider replacing, particularly if there are charging stations, the addition of municipal electric vehicles to the municipal fleet as older vehicles are being phased out. And so there are grant and funding opportunities that should also be sought if any of those are undertaken as well. That is the end of the report. I would be glad to answer any of the board's questions.
Very much, Ms. Sarmash, for that very thorough report and distinguishing it from the comprehensive master plan that we just recently adopted. I'd like to open it up to the board. What do we think?
Can I?
Mr. Chowdhury.
Ms. Sarmat, you really do a fantastic job.
Thank you very much.
Very nice, very thorough, as Chairman says. I have a question actually on, you probably have answered in a one way, just in a few seconds, few minutes earlier. Can we have electric charging? First of all, can we have electric charging in a township building or township, basically, plot?
We have it.
Yep.
The second thing is that can we charge for anybody charging it? Because most people actually charge there, and there are a lot of money could be made.
You can. The municipality, pursuant to the ordinance, though, I think it would require adoption of that section of the state model ordinance. There is an allowance for the municipality to charge a certain rate or to determine if it's going to offer it for free or not.
Okay. So that already been considered, or?
It should be considered in that ordinance, yeah. We don't have an ordinance on the books yet, so we should adopt an ordinance that includes that.
Okay, one more thing. Since we don't have, obviously, Bridgewater doesn't have Bridgewater do have a rail stations, yes. Is there any way we can expand that one? Because there are lots of now residents who actually goes to New York City. It is not convenient to everybody to go to Drayton's. Is there any way, I don't know whether it falls under master plan or not, at least expanding the Bridgewater station itself and making sure that at least we could attract majority of the residents who goes to New York City, or at least to Newark also have the rail as an alternative transportation mode.
This is separate from electric vehicles. You're saying
Yes.
Could we add?
Right.
Could we do something differently about the rail access we currently have? I think in recent years, and I'm not completely up to date with it, that the train schedules have changed in response to potential. I know it's still not ideal.
Yeah.
The train station's not. That would be more of a question or maybe a recommendation that the township work with New Jersey Transit, who operates all of that. From working with NJ Transit in the past, they care a lot about ridership. They care a lot about what the cost is to run those lines. And so I think we'd have to have a deeper conversation and maybe even a township survey to better understand what people's commuting needs are. I think that for a while, there was not a lot of people that were going back to New York because there weren't requirements, and there are a lot of corporations, especially New York corporations, that are requiring people to come back to the office at least even a few days a week. And I do think it would be a tremendous benefit to the township to have, a fully scheduled, train schedule to New York or even Newark. So, I think that's a good thing, and that's something we'll run up the ladder too. I think it's always something that the township has to work with transit, New Jersey Transit, to better understand what their needs are. They may be completely unaware, and maybe they need us to run a survey to the township. Maybe they need to have, a charrette or something with the township to figure out what residents are interested in. So, we'll definitely run that up and see if we can get a meeting with transit to talk about that.
Actually, may I speak on that point? I mean, I think we should always consider the needs and the the evolving needs of the community. But as a former, and I have to stress, former commuter to New York City before COVID, the Raritan Valley line is literally the worst line in New Jersey in terms of service, availability, reliability, you name it. I'm not sharing anything that anybody doesn't know or that New Jersey Transit probably wouldn't admit, at least privately. So even at the heyday, the commuting option, in terms of express service or semi-express service and having to switch trains at Newark and all the various other problems, the Raritan Valley line is not a priority of New Jersey Transit. And all you need to look at is why there is so little direct service to Penn Station. Theoretically, New Jersey Transit could terminate certain trains on other lines at Newark and say, sorry, you're the ones that have to occasionally switch trains to go into Midtown, and instead prioritize some of our trains. They just don't do it. They do it, after, middle of the day. They do it later at night. They certainly don't do it during commuting time. So while I think we absolutely should always have our ear to the ground for changes and to service the needs of our community, that's not an easy fix. I just think we need to manage expectations, as whether it's the administration or the mayor or whomever, reaches out to New Jersey Transit.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I made it seem like it's an easy fix. New Jersey Transit is, a lovely organization, but not one that easily makes changes. They analyze everything to death. So it certainly would be a long path ahead, and a lot of research would need to go into it. But I think, like you said, keeping your ear to the ground and, keeping contact with transit is not a bad idea.
One comment, I had been a participant over the years with Raritan Valley Line Coalition. I forget. It was an organization of municipalities and counties along the Raritan Valley line seeking one-seat transit to New York on the Raritan Valley line. And I think this was just before the pandemic, but there was some analysis that this coalition had put together and hired a consultant that determined that the ridership of people going to New York on the Raritan Valley line to New York Penn, exceeded the number of riders on the North Jersey coastline from the shore. But the North Jersey coastline had previously secured slots running through the tunnels from Newark to New York Penn. And there was a political decision that needed to be made to shift those slots to correspond with the increased ridership coming from the west versus coming up the shore. Now, I haven't heard about any update on that analysis since the pandemic, but that was the case, and certainly something like that would have to be updated. It was a very interesting bit of information that I was surprised myself.
Can I just add to both of Councilman Kerr's and Mr. Papa's comments? Actually, since I'm a little bit of knowledge about the transit systems, you are absolutely right. And one of the things that in this transit, it's extremely difficult for managing. In fact, they're probably difficult than even New York City transits to change anything. Plus, they have got too much of political pressures every time the new governor comes in. Money is a budget is an issue. Second, most importantly, the Raritan Valley line is considered by them as probably the almost tertiary line rather than anything secondary line, like you said on the west, the coastal line there. But there is always a, new management is here in New Jersey Transit. I think they're open to discuss whether they will do anything or not. That I don't know, but at least, like you said, Mr. Ahmad, it is worthwhile to discuss about it. I think we have got now weekdays 3 or 4 direct line, if I'm not mistaken, at least 3, I think, direct line to Penn stations, and so does the evening also. But whenever there's a rain comes or anything else, they're all messed up badly. So I think we should push for more direct access to Penn stations, as well as have some frequent lines for that, at least to attract more residents. I think it is worthwhile to consider this now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. I just wanted to also say, compliment Ms. Harmed that, so much of what you discussed were points made during the master plan process. And as she said, there are numerous dozens of recommendations that were made that probably this board over the next few years and council will consider reports such as this that would advance some of the goals that were identified by the public process. Thank you.
Mr. Pappas. Any other questions regarding the master plan reexamination? Any questions?
Well, I do have one question, because I know this was discussed at council a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was mentioned in passing. I just want to make sure that there's no additional discussion required. The potential expanded use of medical, and I just wanted your thoughts on that. And then perhaps a few of us could react.
Yeah, so I think you made a comment at the council meeting about, medical seems to be the first step that some of these commercial office campuses take, and it can't always be the fix to everything, right? Everything just can't end up being medical, and we've seen a few changes here. The Summit Medical Group took over the old Crate and Barrel within the promenade, or the villages at Bridgewater Commons. Certainly I've seen it in my own town that there's been, supermarkets turn into big urgent cares. It's the nature of how some of the hospitals that have now all consolidated are now working with these satellite offices. I believe that this is going to be a bigger operation than what your typical urgent care would be, something like that. But I do think that there are other alternatives that we've seen or are seeing. Our housing element and fair share plan includes 2 office buildings to be repurposed as housing. And so there are uses that, generally these commercial office parks have been flipping to. And I think preserving the office character, preserving the office ratables, preserving that campus as it is in the best way possible without any major or foreseeable impacts based on the use being very similar to an office is ideal in this scenario. And I think keeping the vitality of the Somerset Corporate Center and keeping it alive and tenanted is an important part of it. So that's kind of the thought process that I have behind the rezoning request.
So what I think I heard, and I think we're in alignment, is additional flexibility within proper guidelines is good. Not putting our eggs all in the same basket is also very important. And specific to medical, my comment at the council meeting, it sounds like we're fairly well aligned here, is likely a continued important part of future planning and thinking, but each and every square inch of vacant space could not possibly be considered for medical, because as much as the field is growing and advancing and our community needs has various healthcare needs, the answer is not take every office building, take every store, take everything, and it just wouldn't work certainly not in a short period of time. Maybe over a 50 or 100 year period. It would, but certainly not in a short period of time. And I use the phrase, I don't think we can see anything as a single silver bullet, and certainly, with sufficient respect, and I'd also say R&D is the same thing. R&D, technology, wonderful ratables, great for the town, great for our reputation, great for attracting new residents. But again, there's limits and there's supply and demand in play here, and you want to provide probably just a little bit more supply than there is demand. Kind of very close, but keep everybody wanting to be here. If you put a wild amount of supply out into the marketplace, the demand will have a lot of trouble following it.
And this is only, this zone is very specific to the property across the street. It's not like this zone is throughout the township. So the permitted use does have kind of a short leash on it because it's specific to that office park.
But, you know, I mean, I just think it's important for us as a community to understand, you know, if everybody says, well, you know, why can't we have more R&D? Why can't we have more, you know, the answer is we can roll out the red carpet and we can encourage those things. But ultimately, it is the free market that decides, you know, what is desirable and what's desirable in a reasonable time period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from the dais?
I had to step out for a minute, but I missed that question about the Somerset Corporate Center. I had some questions on it too, based on results of today. I guess what is our responsibility from the board today? Because this is something new to us that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, these are, I guess sort of new recommendations on top of the comprehensive master plan. Some of them work out. So the recommendation and specifically about Route 28 was about doing an analysis. This kind of fleshes out that analysis, provides a little bit of ideas behind it. So it acts on, let's say, that recommendation to do that. The action item from the comprehensive master plan was not to adopt an ordinance, but rather to do the analysis. So anything that followed this could potentially be an ordinance or something like that. It's just another, this board will only take action on, this is your responsibility, you adopt a master plan and a master plan re-exam reports. It's the council, it's the governing body that would take action on any kind of master plans, on any kind of ordinances. And then this board, anytime those ordinances were introduced, would always get them transmitted back. So this board's job in any future ordinances would be to determine if they're consistent with either this master plan re-exam or the master plans that have been adopted most recently, or if they're not consistent. And so, again, this is just another step in the process. And if the governing body does take any action in the form of an ordinance, you'll see it back here before it gets adopted, and you'll get time to comment on it.
So a concern I have in mind of at medical uses, there's things that are popping up, and then there's some laws are in place, but not necessarily in place with IV medical centers and things like that. With us, if we were to recommend a change, it would have to come back to us for approval, or if they weren't seeking a variance.
So it would be two things. So because this zone does not currently permit that use, it would have to be adopted by ordinance first. So let's say the ordinance that was introduced said IV medical spas or whatever. And then this board can say, that's not consistent with the master plan. You know, that's not what the recommendation was. Let's just say theoretically. But if it includes the medical use as described here in that ordinance, then this board would transmit it. Anything that came before the board for a site plan generally would be a permitted use. But if you determined over the course of the hearing that it wasn't a permitted use, like it was something that was unregulated or something that wasn't really a medical use, or it was a cosmetic spa or some med spa or something like that, you could absolutely determine that you don't have jurisdiction as permitted use. So the first step is the ordinance and making sure that the permitted use is listed out, protect ideas like that you make sure that they capture the correct permitted uses. In this case, what's recommended here is really intended to be more of like a hospital level medical facility with, you know, x-rays and labs and things like that, and for blood work and whatever. It's not intended to be a more unregulated, this would be, you know, a bigger operation.
There's things in here, though, that they're also adding things like limited food services, which makes me think different.
Oh, no, that would be like a separate use entirely. So that allowance for food would be like a pad site within the parking lot. Like if there was a parking lot, it would allow like a pad site, like a as long as it didn't have a drive-through or something. It would be a tropical smoothie cafe or something. Just something to serve that corporate office campus without people having to leave, because I think sometimes that's a barrier to, being able to amenitize an office park. So it's just another consideration.
They have food in there.
Some of them do, right? Yeah.
All do.
Yeah. So, it would be another option potentially for the board or for the council to consider as an ordinance, just a recommendation.
Any other questions?
I just have one question. Really great job, Mr. Armack, as usual. We've been talking about the flooding for at least, I've been on the board for 4 years now, I think. And, proactive management of like some of the most severely impacted areas. I know in like, I think it's 13, number 13, part 2, to protect the quality of surface and subsurface water through strong stormwater management. I guess beyond that statement, like, what is the guidance that we should be encouraged to pursue to reduce some of the impacts of, in like some, like I'm just thinking about Findurn area, the Bound Brook border. I think the TD Bank ballpark was flooded. And I don't know, maybe Mike or Councilman Kirsch can call out, but I don't know if there's any proactive management like solutions that we've implemented in those areas.
If I could, the council just approved awarding of a contract to Colliers Engineering. We received a grant for a universal drainage assessment, and that Mr. Burr actually found the grant, and we were successful in obtaining it. And it's meant to do an overview of the entire township and identify, you mentioned the Findurn area, the ballpark, the significant areas or areas of town where there are significant flooding issues. Not go down to a specific mitigation plan for each, but to really identify, I mean, we have a list. It's not that we're not aware of where these issues exist. And that is important, as we are also looking at a stormwater management plan that is required by the state and federal government. And so these two things will be companion efforts to both look at it at a higher level, universal drainage assessment, and then the stormwater management plan that becomes very, very specific. And in fact, there was an RFP that the township issued for specifically identified neighborhood drainage issues. And there will be, at I think the next council meeting, a proposed award of contract for an engineering firm to look at a specific neighborhood that has had drainage issues. So to respond to your question, I think the new stormwater management regulations do provide opportunities whenever there are new applications, site plan applications, subdivision applications, to look at site-specific issues or neighborhood issues that are impacted potentially by the development of a site. And then these other two, stormwater management plan, universal drainage assessment, we're hoping that will be a much more comprehensive look at this very, very complex and potentially very expensive program.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Mike. I think is the proactive management of the stormwater, and of course it will be costly, for the township, but if we're trying to provide quality of life, it's extremely important, especially as we see these 100-year floods happening more often and often. So does that cover then I guess the proactive, is that, Mike, that's more proactive on our part, or is that a recommendation that we have in the master plan currently?
That is what you listed, is it, or you noticed?
That's
a recommendation. So
okay.
It's more general, but things like what Mr. Pappas just included are all ways that, feed into that recommendation. The same way that if an applicant was here, with a variance for impervious coverage, their consistency with the master plan when they have to note that in their variance testimony would be something any of these board members or myself could bring up to say, you're violating the impervious coverage, how does that comport with the ability to provide additional stormwater management on your property or be proactive?
Right.
That's site specific, but I think what you're noting about being proactive as a town and identifying through a neighborhood plan or a township-wide plan is going to be really productive. A lot of stuff's going to come out of that, right? There's going to be mitigation measures that can come out of that, but identifying them, doing that analysis first is going to be really important. I think there's other things about this recommendation that can be utilized as well. If there's an acquisition for open space, keeping places green is always a great stormwater management technique. Not having impervious coverage is one. So there are other things that don't seem like they're directly related to the construction of a stormwater management or bioretention basin, like, acquisition of open and protecting open space or protecting farmland or whatever it is.
Right.
That could lead into this or feed into this.
And I guess just pursuant to that piece of the reexamination, there's no, I guess, solutions that are been proposed, I guess the first step would be what Mike is mentioning in terms of before we can actually implement some of those items, like the solutions to solve for.
There are, right now, we don't have anything in this master plan reexamination, but there are things we can look at. There are specific ordinances we might want to consider. We have, a hillside development calculation requirement for steep slopes. There are other similar ordinances we could include for environmentally critical areas, so wetlands protection, flood hazard protection, that would help, provide a similar situation to hillside development. Now, it hasn't been discussed, it hasn't been included in this re-exam, but those are all measures that could be consistent with this master plan recommendation.
Thank you.
And one other comment, I think if Mr. Berg were here, he would be able to elaborate on the new stormwater management regulations that are much more stringent than in the past. And that, so again, when there are individual applications coming before this board or the zoning board, they have to meet those requirements where a few years ago they didn't.
Thank you, Mr. Pappas. Any other questions from the dais?
I mean, also I want to reiterate appreciation for the effort, not only the big effort, but now the follow-up effort. And I guess maybe I'll steal your next question, which is what is our course of action tonight and where do we go from here?
I'd also like to give them
public. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay.
If I could, just, I'd like to give about a minute or so each to any member of the public that wishes to comment on Ms. Sarmad's testimony. Please feel free to come up at this time. And once again, if you could just state your name and address for the record, and we'll try to keep it about a...
3 Cornell Boulevard, Bridgewater.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here listening to your delivery, and I'm thinking to myself, what a bunch of hypocrites. She's talking about flood water. Come to the property in question. Watch the flood. I'll show you the $10,000 drainage system I put in to manage the water that comes off of the property in question on Cornell. And you talk about green space. We have all been saying, why can't Bridgewater just turn this space into green space? Here it is in the master plan, and Bridgewater is fighting us on this when the master plan is talking about the very things we have been up here, not in front of you because it's our first time here in front of the council, who we threw out of office, as you know, because we were tired of their condescending attitude toward us, the way they just dismissed us at every council meeting. Well, guess what? 3 of them are out. We told them we were coming after them. We did it, okay? Bridgewater's tired of this kind of behavior. Listening to you, which was very well presented, we'd like to know when we're going to get to see all this. And it's like, what you're saying makes sense. We've been saying it. Turn this space into green space. You can't build on this space. It is a flood zone. It is a swamp. I've been living there 13 years. I had one year the water broke through over my berm, across my backyard, coming down the driveway. The waves were hitting like this. The freaking squirrels could have been surfing, okay? The water coming from that property onto mine, all trying to get out to the road. And here you are making proposals that we have all been talking about for months, and no one is like, you're so determined to cram these buildings onto the space where I've already talked about the fact that you're going to kill all the kids from the exhaust. You're so determined to cram these 2 little buildings onto the space because Mayor Mensch needs to get his quota. And instead of listening to what this woman is saying about the master plan, floodwaters, green space, I'm really disgusted that I'm listening to our government in Bridgewater that is such hypocritical.
Mr. Cass, thank you very much for your comments. However, I am going to say one thing. I do not appreciate you walking up here and displaying and talking to this board as if we're a bunch of hypocrites, as well as our board professionals. Each and every single member of this board is here tonight as a member, as a resident of this township. Some of them leave their children at home. Some of them could be other places, but they're here volunteering their time independently of the administration, independently of the mayorship. So I would appreciate if anybody else that comes up to that podium tonight, if you could please ask your comment, post your question. Please be cognizant that everybody here is giving their time. and have worked for years now on developing a master plan that was recently adopted. This is a re-examination report. This work takes time, it takes months, it takes effort. It took many people, many residents of the township that have come down and have given their advice as to what this township should do, and we all kept our ears open, kept an open mind. If I could just ask, with a little bit of grace, please just ask your questions and be cognizant of the amount of the work that has been put into this process. Thank you very much.
I'd like,
They didn't know what we were talking about. We produced the documents from 1980, whatever it was, saying that the property was vacated. So, yeah, it was kind of like we're telling them one thing after the other. You can't put these buildings in here because of this, because of this, because of this. And now we know that they're going to fight us. We've learned that. They're going to stick their heels in and fight us. And as somebody else said earlier tonight, we're not all super wealthy. We have resources, and we're going to continue to fight them. We made it very clear to the council many times that we're going to continue to fight them. I appreciate that you're listening to the residents. I don't know if you're hearing us. We are coming in here continually telling you over and over the same thing. If you're listening to us, nobody's doing anything about it. You have the council that is determined to push these buildings through, one way or the other, despite the fact there's no way to get into the property. Can't come off of 206, you know that. Can't come off of my property unless you guys are planning to give me $1 million for my house. And maybe give them $1 million. You can't do that. We'll be in lawsuits up the yazoo once Bridgewater decides they're going to try to start stealing the property from us by eminent domain. Those lawsuits will go on for who knows how long, and we'll tie this project up for years. And we try to explain it to the council, and yet they just keep hammering it. One of them sat up there and said, "We're going to make this happen." I looked at him, I was like, "Okay, well, guess what? We're going to do everything to stop it." That's what we're getting from them. So if I'm a little upset, yeah, my house is right there. I stand to lose the most. I don't mean to attack anybody. We're pissed off, okay? You say that you're working here for the residents, which really cracks me up. We're looking out for the residents. Yeah, you want to move people into those buildings where the kids will develop asthma. We know that already. You're going to have all these people breathing in this, and yet you still want to stand and say, we're so concerned about the residents.
You've made your point. You've made your point. You've
can I
made your
just say
point.
too, and we can't comment on that's happening, so I'd appreciate understanding that because there's litigation going on. I will say, a group of us met every week for what, the better part of a year?
Longer.
Every single week. This is a volunteer board. I have 3 kids at home. I work in Bridgewater. I live in Bridgewater. My kids go to schools in Bridgewater. I have a home that's in a flood area. I've had work done too. I care about this town more than you think I do, and having comments like that makes people not want to volunteer. That has to stop. We spent time and time and time again meeting every single week on this master plan. I spent nights up after my kids went to sleep reviewing the master plan. Then we did how many public hearings? Where we put up countless comments and places, boards and newspapers about how we were going to let residents came up with whole new ideas with Scarlett Doyle and with Catherine in here too, where people could put in their commentary. We took every single comment and reviewed it over and over and over again to make sure it was in here. The next time we had a master plan, we all got up on here and spoke about it. We don't all agree on everything. We don't all disagree on everything either, but we tried to make the decisions for the best part of the town. Doesn't mean we're going to make all of them that you agree with or all that we agree with, but we worked really hard on it. That's what she presented on today with some updates too. I just ask you to be more curious than to just assume we don't care. Call us hypocrites.
That is incorrect, and again,
You're conflating two very different things.
The master
The
plan.
master plan. The whole town is in the
Whole town
master
is in the
plan.
Master plan.
So how can you be working on the master plan when you're telling us you can't answer our questions or deal in?
That is but one component. That is but one component of the master plan. I think what my colleague and I are saying here is that we are doing our best, that we will always, this board will always do what's best in the best interest of the residents of the township of Bridgewater. As Ashley Sikora said, we will not always agree, we will not always disagree, and we might all come from different schools of thought. But one thing we have in common is that we all live here, we all want the best for Bridgewater. Not for the state of New Jersey, what's best for Bridgewater. We cannot control what the state of New Jersey does. Now, if I would ask that remaining comments, please feel free to come up. That is part of this process. The public input is first and foremost. Please feel free to come forward.
I would also like to say that if you were actually listening, Ms. Sarmad did say that we took into account a lot of the comments that were brought to our attention, and it was put into this relationship to other plans in this reexamination, and that is specifically in here. So there were a lot of valid comments, a lot of valid points that were made, and that was considered in this.
Thank you, Ms. Chartowitz. Now, once again, I will extend the offer for any member of the public to please feel free to come forward to ask any question or commentary on the testimony just heard. Seeing none and hearing none, that will close the public portion of the commentary for this section of our agenda this evening. Ms. Sarmat, anything else?
No, I would just respectfully ask that the board consider the presentation and consider voting to adopt the master plan reexamination report.
Thank you, Ms. Sarmat. And if I could just have a quick closing comment. I appreciate the work that you've put into this, and I think it's difficult for people to take a step aside and think about that there are three major corridors running through the township of Bridgewater. Three, they are, say, four, potentially five. And I really do appreciate the history that you put into this little preface here, because it's important to understand the amount of work and the safeguards that are put into a document like this, to understand that there are corridors coming in and out of Bridgewater here. And this matters. It mattered 50 years ago, it mattered 30 years ago, and it matters today. So thank you very much on behalf of the board. Board Attorney, Mr. Peck, I'm assuming we need a motion that Ms. Sarmad's report is not inconsistent with our master plan this evening.
Well, I just, you don't even have to go that far. You just have to determine whether or not to adopt the master plan reexamination.
Okay, so I believe we'll have to have two.
So if someone would make a motion to that effect?
Well, there's one very minor edit, just for the sake of completeness. On page 1, or Roman numeral 1, I should say, our planning board members, Mr. Chowdhury's name was inadvertently omitted.
And I would ask that the board adopt with that one change.
With that
That will be updated, and I apologize profusely, Mr.
And I didn't mean to call that out, and I thought, maybe I'll just sort of whisper it to you later. But since this is an official document, let's make sure that one minor edit is included.
He definitely deserves to be on there, and I don't know how it got missed, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman. No worries at all, Mr. Chowdhury.
Because I'm like, wait, there's 10. Who's missing? Right. Yeah. All right, we got it.
Very good. Who would like to make said motion?
Mr. Chowdhury should make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. I'll take a second to that motion.
I'll second.
That's Councilman Kirsch. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Vesio,
Yes.
Councilman Kirsch.
Yes.
Mr. Pappas.
Yes.
Mr. Magora.
Yes.
Mr. Wang. Ms. Sikora.
Yes.
Mr. Banga.
Yes.
Ms. Chartowich.
Yes.
Mr. Chowdhury.
Matt, thank you very much. Board Attorney, Mr. Peck, just for completeness here, I do believe we also have the resolution as well. Do we need a separate motion for the resolution, or is it all encompassing?
I think the motion to approve the resolution just memorializes that vote.
Very good, for the record. Thank you. Once again, Ms. Sarmat, thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our business this evening. However, Ms. Prost, I'd like to ask for a quorum check for which date are we looking for here?
The 11th, right?
Correct. If this is for a tentative special meeting, I do have some feedback. Councilman Kirsch, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Kirsch, Mr. Pappas, Mr. Magura, and Mr. Atkins, Mr. Wang said they would be available, so we would just have a quorum. So if any of those people were unable to attend, then we would not.
What is the anticipated agenda?
It is my understanding, master plan consistency review, unless Ms. Sarmet has anything further.
For the 11th? Yeah, it's a potential need for a master plan consistency review.
So if I'm hearing this right, we would just have 5 as of this evening.
I can be tentative. So if I know earlier in that day, I can leave earlier, but I'm finishing up a work trip that day.
So we have a few people that are tentative, including Ms. Sikora. Mr. Chowdhury is tentative. Mr. Chairman, you're tentative. So we have 5 definite as of.
Okay. Would you seek a confirmation, perhaps? Via email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
If, okay. If the members of the board that are available that evening, if you could please confirm your availability for December 11th via email to Ms. Probst, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'm sorry, just that's in addition to the meeting on the 16th, because we have at the very least this case, the continuation of the case from earlier.
And on the 16th, we also have a extension of approval time for AR Bridgewater. They were here about 18 months ago. They've made a request for an extension of their approval, as well as a potential, likely, open space and recreation master plan element. It just needs to get in by Friday, so it likely will be heard on the 16th. That was prepared by CME, so hopefully we can tie that up with the rest of the master plan and have that finalized as well.
Thank you very much.
I won't be able to make the 16th.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions?
I was just going to say, if you wouldn't mind,
Not at all.
I could just do a quick check for the 16th.
Let's start from down here with Mr. Chowdhury.
Free? Tentative on the 16th?
Mr. Banga?
I should be able to be there.
Okay. Ms. Chardwitz?
I should be here.
Okay. Ms. Sikora, I believe you said no? Okay. I should be here. Councilman Kirsch?
Yes, I'll be here.
Okay.
Yes.
Sikora? Mr. Wang? Mr. Pappas? Very good. Okay, Ms. Probst, I think we have our answer for the 16th.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
That's Ms. Sikora, and a second, please.
I'll second.
That's Ms. Chartowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everyone.